Right now, you are certain that you are the one listening. You say to yourself, I chose this. I decided to play this video. I tell you something unpleasant. For the most part, you did not choose. You were chosen by habit, by mood, by invisible forces in you that press the same old buttons. You call this my life. I call it sleep. Do not believe me. Verify. In this moment, before a single new idea enters you, look at your body. Do not think about your body. Look with attention. Where are your hands? How are your shoulders placed? Is your jaw tight or relaxed? Notice it now. Do nothing to change it. Only see. A second ago, this posture existed without your knowledge. It lived as if you were absent. You were not there, yet it was writing your story, your nervous system, your fate. This is the first insult to your pride. Your body has been living for you. You go through the day convinced you are directing everything. You say, I walk, I sit, I speak, I decide, I feel. Yet watch yourself for a single hour and you will see you do not walk, you are walked. You do not speak, you are spoken. Thoughts appear, emotions erupt, movements repeat. And a small, proud voice inside takes credit and calls all of this I. This is like a coachman asleep on the carriage, snoring loudly, while the horses race wildly down the road. The coachman dreams that he holds the reins. Right now, for a moment, try to stop dreaming. Sense the weight of your body, where it makes contact with the chair, sofa, or bed. Feel the pressure of your back or your legs. At the same time, hear these words. Do not let attention fall entirely into the mind or entirely into the body. Try to hold both. For as long as you can, neither long nor short. No imagination, only this double awareness. Already you feel how quickly it slips away. This is how little you are present in your own life. Your body is a forgotten seed. Rupture, every line of it is written with old experiences, inherited fears, borrowed gestures, automatic defenses. When you frown in the same way your father did, your muscles are reciting something from him. When your shoulders contract whenever a certain tone of voice is heard, an old chapter is being read aloud in flesh. But you do not know the language. The book is in your hands. You carry it everywhere. You sleep inside it, yet you never open it intentionally. You call it my body, but you are mostly a stranger inside it. Ask yourself, not intellectually, but as a question you taste. When did I last move deliberately, consciously, not because impulse or habit pushed me, but because I chose with full awareness? You will see that almost never. You scratch because something itches. You reach for your phone because something in you is bored. You adjust your hair because something in you is afraid of the opinion of others. Each small, insignificant gesture is a line of destiny. Fate is not some far-off dramatic event. Fate is the sum of these tiny mechanical movements repeated thousands of times. Now another experiment. Keep your eyes as they are. Do not move them. Instead, gently bring attention to your left hand. You might have heard the mental voice preparing a sharp reply. And in that noticing, if it were real, not imagined, there could have been a pause. In that pause, your fate in that moment could have shifted by a hair's breadth. Sometimes a hair's breadth is the difference between deepening a prison and stepping toward an exit. But do not dream of heroics. Your first work is not to change your reactions, but to see them as they are in real time. This is far harder than it sounds. To see in the moment, you must have attention available, not entirely spent. Movements train this availability. They demand that you keep a portion of attention free, even while the body is busy with complicated sequences. This free attention is gold. With it, you can pay for a different kind of life. There is another part of you that must awaken if this work is to be more than an experiment. It is what I call real conscience. Not moral codes learned from outside, not guilt imposed by others, but an inner sense of truth that sometimes appears, usually when it is too late. You have felt it before, after an outburst, a betrayal, a lie, a cowardly silence. Something in you has whispered, "This was not right for me." You drowned it with explanations, with self-justification, with distraction, yet it remained a faint ache. Real conscience does not argue, it does not shout, it does not flatter. It simply shows you, in a wordless flash, what is in harmony with your real possibility and what is not. The tragedy is that in ordinary life, conscience is almost always crushed between the demands of personality. Your false self wants to appear strong or kind or clever or spiritual. To preserve these costumes, it will lie both to others and to yourself. Each time it does so, it pushes conscience further down. After years of this, you live without feeling the pain of your contradictions. You call this maturity. Movements, when taken seriously, begin to uncover conscience again. How? Not by preaching morality, but by confronting you with your own insincerity in action. You promise yourself to stay present during the sequence, and you find you forgot after the second posture. You set an inner aim to keep the arms at a certain height, and you cheat a little when fatigue appears. You know the form requires stillness between gestures, and yet you sway, adjust, scratch, pretending it is nothing. Every small dishonesty is felt if you are attentive as a slight sting. That sting is conscience waking. Now, without movements, you can experience a little of this right where you are. Give yourself a tiny task for the next minute to remain aware of the sensation in your hands while listening. Make this promise inwardly. Do not make a big drama of it. Simply say quietly to yourself, for this next minute, I will not abandon this sensation. Now begin. Feel the hands, temperature, weight, pressure. At the same time, receive the words. Watch what happens. You will see how quickly other eyes appear with other aims. One says, this is too much effort, relax. Another says, it's not important, you can catch up later. Another says, you must understand every idea, forget about the hands, think. Another says, you are doing well, you will become advanced. Each of these voices pulls you away. If you notice that you have wandered and gently returned to the sensation, there is a kind of quiet joy, not emotional excitement, but a sober satisfaction. For once you did what you said you would do. This taste is connected to conscience. Real conscience is not only about big sins and virtues. It is about whether your inner and outer movements correspond. When you say, I will, and you do, something aligns. When you say, I will, and you do not, something tears. You feel this tear in the body as a certain heaviness, in the feelings as a disappointment in yourself, in the thoughts as excuses. Over time, if you ignore it, you become numb. You become capable of anything because nothing inside protests. This is why voluntary suffering is essential. When you willingly endure the discomfort of remaining present, of staying with a posture, of confessing an inner lie to yourself without flinching, you create heat. In this heat, old hardened layers of false personality begin to soften and conscience can rise. It does not rise to accuse you. It rises to remind you of the taste of unity. Perhaps you think now, if real conscience awakens, I will feel so guilty about my whole life that I will not bear it. This fear is understandable but exaggerated. True conscience is not neurotic guilt. It does not replay past scenes endlessly to torment you. It brings a clean pain and at the same time a new strength. You see what you have been, and you also feel that something else in you wants and can be different. The pain of conscience is like a flame that burns away lying. It hurts, but while it burns, you keep. Now you are alive. Bring to mind now one area of your life where you are not sincere with yourself. Perhaps you pretend indifference where you crave approval, or you speak of love while secretly calculating advantage. Or you claim spiritual interest while giving your best energy only to comfort and distraction. Do not wallow in self-hatred. That is useless. Simply let the light fall there for a moment. Feel where it touches in the body. Maybe the throat tightens, the chest contracts, the stomach churns. Stay with the sensation. Do nothing to escape for a few breaths. This is voluntary suffering in its simplest form. You are not asked to solve this contradiction in one glorious gesture. You are asked to see it and to bear seeing it again and again. Each time you bear it without running into fantasy or excuses, conscience becomes a little clearer. And when conscience is clearer, your sense of direction in life becomes less dependent on external opinions, on moods, on impulses. You begin to feel, even faintly, what is right for you to do and what is not, beyond what is convenient or impressive. The movements are one of the most direct ways to study all of this at once. Divided attention, three centers, conscience, voluntary suffering, but they are not the only way. Life itself can be a continuous movement if you decide to work. When you walk from one room to another, you can either be lost in daydreams or present in the sensation of your feet, aware of your posture, listening to the sounds around you, and at the same time sensing that you are here. When you speak, you can either pour out words mechanically or feel the breath, the vibration in the chest, the emotions rising, the impulse to exaggerate or to lie, and quietly choose another way. You see, fate is not mainly rewritten in dramatic crises. It is rewritten in these small, repeated moments where attention either collapses or stands up straight. If 1,000 times a day you let attention collapse, your life will follow the old grooves, no matter what ideas you entertain. If even 10 times a day at first you let attention stand up straight, you begin to carve a new path. Later, with help, with guidance, with more systematic practices like the movements, this new path can become a road. But you must begin from exactly where you are, not from your imagination of a spiritual version of yourself. This imaginary self wears dignified expressions and performs elegant gestures in some dream dance. The real work begins with your crooked posture, your restless hands, your wandering eyes, your uneven breath. It begins with the embarrassment of seeing that you cannot keep your attention on a single sensation for more than a few seconds. It begins with the simple, undeniable fact that you are not yet what you pretend to be, neither to others nor to yourself. If you are willing to face this without panic and without consolation, then something very small but very real can start. A different I can begin to grow. Not the noisy I that claims everything and changes every minute, but a quiet I that appears whenever attention is divided and sincere. This I does not shout, it does. Does not boast. It simply stands in the middle of your inner world, seeing. Perhaps for now it appears only as a tiny spark. Do not despise it. In time with work, it can become a flame strong enough to guide your dance, to write new letters in the scripture of your body, and slowly, very slowly, to influence the pattern of your fate. You imagine that if this spark grew into a flame, life would suddenly become easy, harmonious, obedient to your wishes. Do not deceive yourself. When a man begins to awaken, life does not become easier, it becomes clearer. The fog lifts and he sees both the outer world and his inner world without the comforting distortions he once relied upon. He sees the machinery, the repetition, the emptiness of many habits he once cherished. He also begins to sense possibilities that were invisible before, possibilities that demand effort, sincerity, and sacrifice. Awakening is not a reward, it is a responsibility. Yet it is also a freedom, not the freedom of doing whatever you like, but the freedom of not being dragged by every passing emotion and impulse, the freedom of choosing how to move, how to speak, how to respond. This freedom begins in the body, in the moving center. You cannot imagine how much your life would change if your movements were not automatic. You think personality makes your decisions, but personality merely decorates decisions already made by the body's habitual impulses. If you learn to move with intention, you begin to interrupt this hidden dictatorship. This is one of the great secrets of the movements. They do not only train the body to follow commands, they train the whole of you to obey your own chosen direction instead of 1,000 accidental pulls. When you stand in a movement posture, arms lifted, spine straight, weight evenly distributed, something in you is forced to be present because such a position has no meaning in ordinary life. It cannot be sustained mechanically. The machine does not know what to do with it. Either you are present or the posture collapses. If you repeat such postures with sincerity, they begin to change the inner associations. You are no longer a prisoner of gravity, not only physical gravity, but psychological gravity, the downward pull of laziness, self-pity, negativity. Imagine a man who has spent his whole life walking with his head bowed, his chest sunken, his steps hesitant. He does not know that each step reinforces a conviction that he is small, unworthy, destined for disappointment. Now he is told to stand in a movement posture, arms long, diagonal, spiral through the spine, head aligned, breath controlled. At first, the posture feels foreign, even false, but if he holds it with attention, not acting, not pretending, something in him begins to question the old identity. Perhaps he is not destined to be small. Perhaps he is not condemned to repeat the same fate. The posture becomes a seed of another possibility. The movements are not magical. They do not replace life. They reveal life. They expose the gap between who you are and who you imagine yourself to be. They show how easily you crumble when attention weakens, how quickly you seek comfort when the work demands effort, how deeply your habits resist a new direction. And yet, paradoxically, this exposure is liberating. To see oneself honestly is painful, but necessary pain. It is the heat of voluntary suffering without which no transformation is possible. Now consider aim. Without a conscious aim, all effort eventually dissolves into confusion or vanity. Aim gives direction to your work. But this aim cannot be borrowed from books or teachers. It must come from your essence, not from personality's ambitions. Personality wants comfort, admiration, mystical experiences, special powers. Essence wants to grow, to unify, to harmonize the centers. Personality wants to escape pain. Essence wants to face truth. Ask yourself quietly, what is my aim? Do not look for grand statements. A real aim begins small, sincere, specific. I wish to be less identified. I wish to observe my reactions before they carry me away. I wish to move with awareness at least a few times each day. Such an aim can be fed by your efforts. Over time, it becomes magnetic. It begins to gather the scattered energies of your life. Your thoughts, emotions, and movements gradually align. Even your breathing changes. Aim, when it is true, becomes the axis around which a new inner world can form. But be careful. As soon as you declare an aim, personality will try to hijack it. It will pretend to serve the aim while secretly seeking comfort or recognition. This is why you must return again and again to sensation, to attention, to the body. Personality can fake emotions, fake ideas, fake virtues, but it cannot fake sensation. If you remain close to sensation, if you work in the body, your aim has a chance to remain sincere. Let us return once more to presence. Try again. Feel the weight of your whole body. At the same time, hear these words, and at the same time, sense the fact that it is you who is here. These three directions, outer, inner, self, must be held without tension. If you strain, you lose it. If you relax too much, you lose it. It is like balancing on a thin beam while walking. At first you fall constantly, later you fall less. Eventually you can walk a few steps. One day perhaps you walk a long distance, but you never stop practicing. If you stop, you fall. Presence is not a state you achieve once and forever. It is an action, a verb, a continuous effort. In movement, this effort is trained through form. Outside of movement, it is trained through life. Every conversation, every meal, every walk, every frustration, every moment of boredom or irritation is an opportunity to practice divided attention. You can either live sleepwalking or you can use each moment as material for work. You want to rewrite your fate. Understand this. Fate is rewritten through repeated moments of presence, not through dramatic insights. If you are present for 1 minute today, sincerely present without imagination, that minute weighs more in the scale of your destiny than a whole year of dreaming about spiritual transformation. If tomorrow you have 2 such minutes, you are already changing the course of your life. If the day after you have 3, something invisible begins to turn inside you. The wheel of repetition slows. Another force begins to appear. Do not ask for guarantees. There are none. Do not ask for perfection. That is vanity. Do not wait for ideal conditions. They will never come. Work with what you have. Work from where you are. Work with the body you have ignored, with the emotions you mistrust, with the thoughts that run in circles. Use everything. Nothing in you is useless for the work, not even your weaknesses, especially not your weaknesses. One day, if you persist, the movements will no longer feel like a practice separate from life. You will be able to stand in line at a store, walk down a street, talk to a friend, sit in silence, and something in you will be upright inside, sensing the body, receiving impressions, aware of itself, not rigid, not dramatic, not mystical, simply present. This is what it means to dance the movements in life. This is what it means to rewrite fate. But do not think the work ever ends. The moment you think, I have achieved something, you begin to lose it. The work begins again, each morning, each hour, each breath. You stand, you fall, you stand again, you forget, you remember, you forget. You awaken for a second, you sleep for an hour, you see a truth and then pretend you never saw it. This is normal. This is the path. There is no final victory. Only the deepening of sincerity, only the strengthening of presence, only the gradual formation of a stable I that can stand in the middle of your life without being blown away by every wind. This I does not appear suddenly. It forms like a pearl, layer by layer, each layer the result of an effort you made when you could have chosen sleep. So what should you do now? The verdict is simple and uncompromising. Continue. Continue to observe, continue to sense, continue to experiment with divided attention, continue to meet your mechanical habits with light instead of fear, continue to use the frictions of life as fuel, continue to return to yourself at every opportunity. There is no end to this. There is no finish line, but there is a beginning, and you can begin now and begin again tomorrow and again the day after. The movements, the work, conscious labor, voluntary suffering, they are not paths you complete. They are paths that keep you awake while you walk. If you wish to rewrite your fate, then understand this clearly. The rewriting happens only in the moments you are present. And presence is always now, not later, not tomorrow, now. Everything depends on the next moment of attention you are willing to give. Not the idea of left hand, but the direct sensation, warmth, coolness, tingling, heaviness, lightness, stay with it. At the same time, continue to hear these words. If your attention runs away into thinking about what I say, notice this and return once more to the sensation of the hand. You will discover something embarrassing. It is difficult to stay with such a simple task. Something in you refuses discipline. Something in you resists being seen. This resistance is not accidental. It is the resistance of the machine when light is brought into a dark room. Your mechanical life, your so-called normal behavior, has grown very comfortable in shadow. It does not want you to examine how you move, how you stand, how you breathe, because then you would begin to see how little freedom there is. Sleep protects itself. Your forgetfulness is not just weakness, it is a defense. Every person you see on the street imagines himself to be a free individual, choosing his life. Watch them walking. If you ever learn to see, you will grow quiet. That woman who always hurries, neck stretched forward, chest tight, shoulders clenched, as if running late for her whole life. That man whose chest is puffed out, arms swinging in a pattern of invisible superiority. Another whose feet barely leave the ground, as if afraid to appear or to exist fully. These are not random quirks. They are postures built from repeated reactions to pain, praise, fear, and desire. They are the dried riverbeds of old emotions. Through these riverbeds, attention flows automatically. This is what you call character. I call it fate. Consider your own way of sitting. Perhaps you slump, letting the spine collapse, the chest sink. Over years, this posture shapes your mood, your thoughts, your expectations of life. You begin to interpret every event from this sunken place. Or perhaps you hold yourself rigid, overly stomach tight, shoulders forced back, as if always on guard, expecting attack. This, too, shapes the kind of events you attract, the kind of people you tolerate. The body is not separate from your story. It is the ink that writes it. Right now, without changing position, feel the tension that is already there, maybe in the jaw, around the eyes, in the neck, in the belly. Do not rush to relax it. Do not fix it. That is another form of sleep, mechanically correcting without understanding. Simply see it. Let attention rest gently on one area of tension. Perhaps your jaw. Feel how you are clenching. Stay with it. Do nothing. This is the beginning of reading the scripture of your body. It tells you, here, I hold back words. Here, I swallow anger. Here, I am always ready to defend myself. You say you want to change your life, change your destiny. You read books, you repeat phrases, you make plans, yet you do not see that the main writing tool of your destiny, this body, continues to scribble the same lines. You hope for a new story without changing the hand that writes. This is why I speak of movements, of dances that are not merely aesthetic but surgical. They cut into the automatic posture, the old choreography of your fate. Before you can dance consciously, you must first see how you are always dancing unconsciously. Not in a poetic sense, literally. The rhythm of your walking, the timing of your gestures, the way you reach for objects, the pattern of your breath. This is a dance. It has been choreographed by parents, teachers, friends, television, books, traumas, pleasures, fears, and strangely, mostly by nobody in particular, a dance of accidents. Think of someone you know who always ends up in the same kind of situation, always betrayed in relationships, always overlooked at work, always entangled in the same conflict. They change partners, change jobs, change cities, yet the essential story repeats. You think this is fate, like a curse from outside. But what if their shoulders, their gaze, their tone of voice, their way of stepping into a room invites exactly that response? What if the body they live in is constantly asking the world to give them the same role in the same play? They do not know what they are asking, yet the world answers. Now see something uncomfortable. This is you as well. There is a way you step into conversations, a way you listen, a way you withdraw, a way you reach out, all of it patterned. You do not invent it each time. It invents you. Today it appears as your style, tomorrow as your misfortune. You are woven into the fabric of your own gestures. Another task. While you continue listening, let your attention widen and include the whole sense of your body from head to toe. Not in detail, but as a single mass. Weight, volume, presence. Try to stay aware of this total body sensation while hearing my words. The mind will want to run ahead, to argue, to agree, to collect ideas. Let it be. But do not abandon the body. If you lose it, gently call it back. This effort, simple as it seems, is already a rebellion against ordinary fate. For a few seconds, you are not completely possessed by habit. You may notice as you try this that certain parts of the body are completely dark to you. Perhaps you cannot feel your back at all, or your legs are distant, more like ideas than sensations. This shows where you are absent. Where you are absent, life acts on you without your participation. You have no say there. The world imprints itself on you. You do not co-create. Conscious movement begins by lighting a candle in these dark rooms. I tell you a little story. There was once a man who came to a teacher and said, I want to change my destiny. I want a different life, different circumstances. The teacher looked at him, at the way he slumped, at the way his hands nervously picked at his clothes, at the way his eyes darted about the room. The teacher said, very well, stand up straight and walk from here to the door and back 10 times as if you were a king returning from victory. The man felt ridiculous but obeyed. On the 5th walk, he became angry. I came for profound teaching and you mock me with this exercise. The teacher replied, you have already received your answer. You want to change your destiny while keeping your old walk. You want a palace while remaining a beggar in gesture. It is impossible. The point is not that you should imitate a king. That would be another lie. The point is that your present state is carried in the body more faithfully than in words. You say, I am fine, but your shoulders say, I am defeated. You say, I have moved on, but your back says, I still carry it. To rewrite fate, you must first admit that fate is being written continuously through posture, gesture, tension, and movement. Now observe something more specific. Allow one hand to move. Let it perform a small habitual gesture, a way you might wave or adjust your clothes or reach for an object. But this time, watch it as if it belongs to someone else. See how fast it moves, how much unnecessary tension there is, how it overshoots or hesitates. Then stop it halfway, freeze the gesture in midair, hold it there for a few moments and feel everything. The strain in the muscles, the impatience, the embarrassment, the urge to complete the action. This is your mechanical life caught in the act. What you feel in that small moment, the discomfort, the restlessness, is very important. You are touching the first thin layer of what I call voluntary suffering. In ordinary life, you suffer passively against your will. You are offended and you cannot help it. You are anxious and cannot stop it. You are jealous, resentful, guilty, and you are dragged around by these states. In the work, suffering is turned around. You choose to experience the friction of awareness. You accept the discomfort of seeing yourself as you are without immediately escaping or pretending. The first movement shock is very simple. You try to move in a way that is not dictated by habit, and you see that you cannot. Or more exactly, you see that you can only for a few seconds before something in you rebels, forgets, or starts faking it. You decide, I will raise my arm slowly with full attention. The intention is clear. You begin. For the first few centimeters, you might feel every fiber stretching, every sensation alive. Then suddenly thought rushes in, or an emotion of boredom, or an itch on your nose, or a fantasy about how spiritual you look. Attention has fled, the arm continues to rise, but the master has walked out of the room. Let us make this experiment together. If possible, free one arm, let it rest by your side or on your lap. Now with a quiet determination, begin to lift it upward, very slowly, as if underwater. At the same time, feel the movement from inside, muscles contracting, skin stretching, the change of weight, and listen to my words. If you can, add also a sense of your whole body at once. Do not speed up. Notice moment by moment how your attention behaves. Does it stay with the sensation? Does it go into thought? Does it look from the outside like a critic thinking this is silly? Or does it vanish completely and only later you remember, I was supposed to be present? If your attention jumps away, do not scold yourself. Simply see, with a little humor, look, I wanted one thing and I did another. This gap between intention and action, which you usually hide from yourself, is the crack through which a new possibility can enter. Most of the time, you lie to yourself saying, I decide, I do. Now you see there are many I's, each pulling in a different direction. The arm listens to one, the head to another, the emotions to a third. This is not unity. This is not freedom. This is not an individual. It is a crowd. When the arm has reached a certain height, you may freeze it there. Feel the effort required to hold it. Do not change your face. Do not dramatize. Just stay with the raw sensation, heaviness, trembling, fatigue, and at the same time remain aware of the rest of the body and of the words you hear. You are trying to do three things at once: maintain a posture, sense yourself, and receive impressions. Immediately you will see what is possible and what is not. Attention thins out, gets pulled to one side, collapses, revives. This laboratory of a raised arm shows you your whole life. Something else appears here if you are sincere. You will meet resistance not only in the muscles but in the feelings. A little voice may say, why am I doing this? What is the point? I could relax. I could enjoy. This is uncomfortable. Another voice might say, if I do this perfectly, I will become special, advanced, superior. One side seeks laziness, the other vanity. Both are mechanical voices. In the work, we learn to hear these voices without obeying them. We practice being in the middle between comfort and self-importance, accepting the simple labor of awareness. The movements I speak about are not just one raised arm. They are complex sequences involving coordination of many limbs, directions, rhythms, and inner tasks. But the principle is the same. You stand in a specific way, you move in a planned pattern, and you try to be present. On paper, it is simple. In reality, it is a battlefield. The moving center tries to remember the sequence. The emotional center reacts with fear of being wrong or wittisaud. It's excitement about being seen. The intellectual center comments, criticizes, analyzes. In this chaos, one more possibility appears, a quiet, steady attention that is not completely any of these centers, yet can embrace them. But do not go too fast. First, you must digest the humiliation of seeing that even the simplest conscious movement is beyond you for long. You lift an arm and your mind wanders. You try to coordinate breath with a step and you forget the breath. You want to sense both feet on the ground at once and soon realize you have been lost in a fantasy for the last minute. If you run from this humiliation, you will return to your comfortable prison. If you stay with it, you begin to really work. What is this prison? It is not made of external circumstances, rich or poor, married or alone, healthy or sick. These are important, but not the essence. The prison is your momentum, your unconsciousness in movement. You react before you know you reacted. You answer before you know you answered. You step into the same misunderstandings, the same emotional storms, the same wasted hours as yesterday, and you call it another day. In truth, it is the same day wearing a different costume. Now look back over your life, not with sentimentality, but with a cool eye. How many times have you promised yourself, I will change, I will do differently, I will not repeat this pattern? And yet, after some time, the same pattern reappeared. New place, new people, new explanations, but the same inner story. This is not just psychological, it is physical. Your nervous system has a groove. Your muscles, your breath, your facial expressions have grooves. The signal comes, and down the same groove, the current runs. Movements, when worked with consciously, are a way of slowly carving new grooves. For the moment, I ask you for nothing heroic, only this. Several times during this talk, catch yourself in the act of being moved instead of moving. Notice when the hand goes to the face without your decision. Notice when the leg bounces restlessly. Notice when the shoulders creep upward toward the ears. Do not interfere at once. First see. The light of attention itself is already a subtle movement. It is already a tiny rewriting of fate because for that instant, you are not completely a machine. If you persist in such observations, you will see that your so-called personality, which you defend so fiercely, is largely a collection of trained movements, tensions, and reflexes. Personality blushes when praised, stiffens when criticized, fidgets when insecure, performs when watched. Essence is something quieter, deeper, less theatrical. It can only grow in the soil of sincerity. To become sincere, you must first stop lying, not to others, but to yourself, about your own mechanicalness. The raised arm, the frozen gesture, the observed posture are your teachers in this. One more small task before we go further. Let your eyes rest on some object in front of you, a wall, a screen, a piece of furniture. Do not stare aggressively, simply let the gaze settle. Now, while looking, bring a portion of attention back to the sensation of your right foot. Feel its contact with the floor or with whatever supports it. At the same time, hear these words. Try for a few breaths to keep this threefold division. Seeing outside, sensing inside, receiving impressions. Do not make a drama if it fails. This is rehearsal for another kind of life, one in which you could walk, speak, act, and still be present. You are used to imagining fate as something written in the stars, some cosmic decree. That may be so in part, but there is another fate, more immediate, the fate of whether you sleep or wake in this very body now. If you remain a bundle of automatic movements, then whatever the stars decree, you will meet it unconsciously, repetitively, as you have always met everything. If you begin even a little to move with awareness, to inhabit form with presence, then you introduce a new element into the equation. You become not the sole author of your destiny, that is vanity, but a conscious collaborator. The movements I speak about are a distilled form of this collaboration. They are like letters of a higher alphabet traced by the body. Each exact position, each transition, each rhythm corresponds to laws that govern creation and transformation. You do not need to understand these laws intellectually at first. It is enough to approach them with respect and with effort. When you stand in a movement posture, you are inscribing something new into the book of your body. When you repeat it consciously, you emphasize the line. Over weeks, months, years, the text changes. When the text changes, the story begins to change. But let us be honest, by merely listening, you will not rewrite much. Words can inspire, can disturb, can point. They cannot move your legs for you. They cannot unclench your jaw. They cannot stand in a movement posture on your behalf. The real work begins when you, of your own, decide to make small experiments in your daily life. To walk down a corridor with attention, to climb stairs feeling each step, to reach for a door handle with awareness of your arm, your breath, your mood. These are miniature movements, and they show you again and again that you are not yet master in your own house. So do not flatter yourself that you have already changed because you understand these ideas. Understanding without practice is another form of sleep, a more elegant, more sophisticated dream. If you wish, truly wish, to dance the movements, and in doing so, to influence your fate, you must begin with this. See how deeply your body is already dancing without you. Accept the humiliation of your mechanicalness as a necessary medicine. Taste, even for a second here and there, the difference between being moved by habit and moving with presence. In that thin difference, barely visible at first, the door to another life begins to appear. There is a strange possibility hidden inside these small experiments that I have asked you to make. You have already tasted it a little, but the taste passed too quickly. Each time you try to keep a part of attention on your body while listening, something faint but real appears, a tiny sense that I am here. Not as a thought, not as a phrase, but as a quiet fact. For a brief moment, there is you and there is what you are doing at the same time. Then it is gone, swallowed again by the noise of the machine. Still, that faint taste is worth more than all the philosophies you have collected. Usually, you are entirely in what you do, or entirely in your thoughts about it. When you speak, you are lost in the speaking and the reaction of the other person. When you walk, you are lost in your destination, in fantasies, in worries. When you eat, you are lost in the taste or in the screen in front of you. There is no one who is aware of both the act and of himself performing the act. This is what I call divided attention, not divided in the sense of distracted, but in the sense of simultaneously aware of two directions, outer and inner. We will try this now in a simple way. Without changing anything external, begin to notice the contact points of your body where you touch the chair, the floor, perhaps the fabric of your clothes. Do not analyze, only feel. At the same time, hear my voice. Do not let one exclude the other. And now add a third element, quietly, without words. Sense that it is you who is here, you who is feeling, you who is listening. Not the story about you, not your name, not your history, only the bare fact of presence. For a second, perhaps, there is a triangle. Outer sound, inner sensation, and this subtle I am. If you catch it even once, you have seen the door to another level of life. You will discover that this I am cannot be forced by imagination. You can repeat the words I am, I am, I am all day like a parrot and yet remain asleep. You can think about being present, plan to be present, even talk about being present and still be absent. The taste appears only when attention is actually divided, when part of it is given to the outer world and part to the inner state. This division creates a small tension, a little fire, and in this fire the sense of self begins to crystallize. But you are not alone inside. You imagine one I performing this miraculous act. In reality, many different I's take turns. One wants to remember itself, another wants comfort, another wants distraction, another wants to appear spiritual. This is why your efforts are so inconsistent. The I that decides to work is rarely the same I that finds itself at the moment of action. You go to bed saying, tomorrow I will be present. In the morning, another I who loves sleep and laziness is already in charge. To understand this, you must begin to see how you are built. In you, there are at least three main centers or minds, each with its own language, its own speed, its own tastes. There is a thinking part, an emotional part, a moving instinctive part. They are like three different workers hired to run the same house, each following his own plan. The thinking center deals in words, images, theories. The emotional center responds with like and dislike, attraction and repulsion, fear, joy, sadness. The moving instinctive center handles all automatic processes, walking, posture, digestion, heartbeat, habits. Now, see how this plays out in your attempt to work. The thinking center hears what I say and nods. Yes, this makes sense. I agree. It wants to accumulate knowledge, to compare, to interpret. The emotional center may be disturbed or inspired. It feels hope, resistance, shame, pride. The moving instinctive center, it continues exactly as before, tapping the foot, clenching the jaw, slumping the spine, following the old choreography. Each center lives in its own world. For a moment, bring your attention to your thoughts as they are right now. What is passing? Agreement, doubt, boredom, curiosity. See whatever is there quickly without judgment. Then shift to the emotional tone beneath the thoughts. Perhaps a slight impatience, perhaps a quiet interest, perhaps irritation at yourself or at me. Feel it in the chest, in the solar plexus, in the throat. Then shift again to the physical, the shape of your spine, the weight of your head, the breathing in the belly. You have just visited 3 rooms of your inner house. Normally you stay in one and forget the others exist. In movement, when it is rightly constructed and rightly approached, these 3 centers are called to work together. The thinking center must remember the sequence, the directions, left, right, forward, back, arms at this angle, head turned there. The moving center must execute the pattern precisely without adding or taking away. The emotional center must bear the discomfort of making mistakes, the fear of being seen, the impatience with repetition. And through all this, another possibility appears, an attention that watches, that holds the whole effort in view. This attention is not entirely of any center, it is of you. Right now, in a modest way, you can taste something similar. While you listen, let the thinking center simply receive the words, not rush ahead, not argue, not decorate. Let it be practical. What is being asked of me now? Meanwhile, let the moving instinctive center be given a small task, perhaps to keep the spine a little more upright or to maintain awareness of both feet at once. And the emotional center, invite it to be sincerely interested, not infatuated, not cynical, but quietly earnest. In this arrangement, you are already different from your usual state in which one center dominates and drags the others behind. You will notice that when one center takes over, your whole idea of I changes. When the emotional center is strong, you say, I am furious, I am in love, I cannot forgive. In that moment, you are ready to die for that feeling. Later, when it fades and the thinking center takes charge, you say, how could I have said such things? That was not really me. And you are right, it was not the same you. Yet you never saw the change happen. You passed from one center to another like a man who falls asleep in one room and wakes up in another, believing he never moved. The practice of divided attention begins to make this movement visible. As you hold some awareness of the body while speaking to someone, you may see how emotions rise and fall in the chi. Est, how thoughts build arguments, how the body prepares for fight or flight. You are still in the conversation, but you are no longer completely inside it. A small part of you stands aside, watching. It is this part that can grow into real will, real individuality. Without it, you remain a shifting collection of compulsions calling itself I. Try another small exercise. Remember some recent situation where you reacted mechanically. Perhaps you snapped at someone or withdrew into silence or pretended to agree while burning inside. As you recall it, do not justify and do not condemn yourself. Simply see the 3 centers at work. What was the body doing? How was it positioned? What was the emotional flavor? What thoughts were spinning? If you look carefully, you will see it was almost like a rehearsed scene in a play. You have performed it many times. The lines may change slightly, the stage and the actors too, but the inner pattern is the same. If you could have been present in that moment with divided attention, something different might have been possible. You might have felt the tightening of the stomach and the quickening of the breath as the first signal. You might have noticed the first flare of resentment in the chest before it became a storm.